Second Board of Control meeting, we have Dale Miller. Here. Joe Nani serving as an alternate for Nan Baker. Here. Trevor Mackler serving as an alternate for Dan Brady. Here. Mike Dever. Here. Dennis Kennedy serving as an alternate for Armin Budish.
Here.
Lenora Lockett. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. We have before us the Board of Control minutes for the meeting of July 15th. Are there any comments or corrections to the minutes from any of the members? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of approval of the minutes indicate by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? The Board of Control minutes are approved. Is there any public comment today?
No public comment at this time.
And are there any tabled items?
And no tabled items. Oh, I'm sorry. We do have one tabled item. Item number BC 2019-519, Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services. It's a two-part item. A, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 46193, which will result in an award recommendation to Cedar Point in the amount not to exceed $9,816.40. And it's for the purchase of 110 any-day admission passes and beverage and meal vouchers for 55 graduating youths aging out of custody and 55 adult chaperones. And B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Division of Children and Family Services. This item was brought forth to the board 2 weeks ago. It was at the request of the board that we attempt to get a account with Cedar Point. They weren't able to do so. We asked if they would leave the tickets at will call. They also said they would not do that. The tickets are transferable. We're still requesting that the tickets be put through because they are for children with exemplary marks and they're within our custody currently.
Any questions?
To approve.
Motion. So we have a motion to approve in a second. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is approved. Thank you.
Next item, it's new items for review, BC 2019-537, Department of Public Works, recommending to amend Board Approval Number BC 2019-210 dated March 18, 2019, which approved an RFP exemption and made awards on requisition 44568 to various providers for routine building and supply purchases for the period January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2019. We're amending the Board of Approval by A, deleting 22 providers as listed in the item detail, B, adding the vendor BP PLC in the amount not to exceed $35,000, and C, by changing the not to exceed amount from $490,000 to $396,340.54.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Department of Public Works. This particular item, we're looking to amend a previously approved Board of Control approval. We did an RFP exemption, if you recall, earlier this year. We did 3 of these, one for each of our major business units. One for sanitary, one for road and bridge, one for facilities. The intent was to identify vendors that supply routine building materials to comply with the recent audit per the fiscal office. The intent was to establish routine encumbrances with the fiscal office for those vendors. This particular item, we're looking to add one additional vendor, which is BP. There's still a business need due to BP's close proximity to our trades at 1642. We're also looking to reduce the number of vendors by 22, totaling $128,000. I know there's a question about why we're reducing 22 vendors. Over time, we've established additional DOs, POs, and contracts to take the place of those vendors in those commodities. So we're just doing a better job strategizing and sourcing those particular commodities. So we're just looking to amend that board, add one vendor, remove 22.
Are there any questions on this item?
I also will add, I don't mean to interrupt, we were notified Friday by OPD that BP is not fully registered with the IG's office, so we're seeking approval contingent on them fully registering.
Okay. Any questions, comments from anyone? Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-538, Department of Public Works, recommending an award on requisition 44389 and enter into a contract with Emerald Supply, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $186,000 for can liners for various county buildings for the period July 22nd, 2019 through June 30th, 2022.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Public Works. This item, we're just requesting approval of a new contract with Emerald Supply. This is for can liners or garbage bags. It's a not to exceed 3-year contract, $186,000. This was a formal RFP process through OPD. Went to 17 vendors. We had 4 bid submissions, 2 qualified, and we're going with the lowest and best vendor.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on this item? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-539, Department of Public Works, recommending an award on requisition 43205 and to enter into a contract with Buckeye Power Sales Company, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $105,000 for generator maintenance services for various county buildings. And it's for the period July 22nd, 2019 through July 21st, 2022.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Public Works. This item, we're recommending award to contract with Buckeye Power Sales. It's a generator maintenance contract for 3 years, $105,000. This was a formal bid process through OPD. Went to 12 vendors. We had 2 bids, and we're going with the lowest and best vendor.
Any questions? I just had one question.
Absolutely.
Since this vendor's in Blacklick, was there anybody closer to Cuyahoga County since it's
So
generator maintenance, if the generator would go
They
down?
have a local hub, we'll call it, established in the Northeast Ohio region. The previous contractor was, they were the other vendor, but they were significantly higher in cost. They bid what they bid years ago on a contract, and Buckeye was extremely aggressive with theirs.
So there is no logistical issue with them?
At this time, no. I mean, we're going to monitor. That was one of our stationary engineers. He had a question, but, we were reassured they have a local office. But obviously we're going to, part of our strategy, or monitor the service levels.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved.
Next item is a 2-part item, item BC 2019-540, Department of Public Works. A, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 46074, which will result in an award recommendation to Rush Trucks Centers of Ohio, Inc. for the purchase of one 2020 H by 620 BA by 6x4 on and off highway tractor and trailer. And B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Public Works again. This item, we're requesting to trade the 2016 International Crane, put it towards the purchase of a new vehicle for our Road and Bridge Division. If you recall, back in June 24th, we did declare the crane surplus. Since then, we've made additional attempts to maximize the return value on that crane. We worked with OPD, put the crane on gov deals. We had no takers, so we're gonna proceed with going with the vendor that offered the $170,000 and trade it in towards a new vehicle, which is a tractor trailer for Road and Bridge.
Are there any questions? And Lenore, you're okay with, since it was previously submitted in June?
Lenore Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. Yes, with the additional due diligence to give a wider audience the opportunity to provide a counter trade-in value. There were no takers, so we're comfortable that at this time this is the best option for the county.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-541, Department of Human Resources, recommending an award on requisition 45827 and enter into a sole source contract with the Jellivision Lab, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $132,972 for Alex Virtual Benefits Counselor Software Subscription Services for Cuyahoga County Employee Benefits Open Enrollment. And it's for the period July 22nd, 2019 through October 7th, 2020.
Good morning, Holly Woods, Director of HR for Benefits and Compensation. This is a benefit communication company. It uses interactive system to provide personalized decision support and benefit education for each unique user. This system will resolve a number of inefficiencies and process gaps that we experience today. It will be used really more than open enrollment. It will be used for new employees prior to their hire. So today, when we hire an employee, we send them some information on benefits, but as you can imagine, that's a lot of information. It can be overwhelming. So it takes for employees to come in on their first day and go through a presentation for them to figure out what benefits they need. In addition, open enrollment, we hold presentations, we send out information. There's a lot of communication effort. This system will provide an interactive tool where employees can go onto the site. It will ask them questions. For example, how many dependents do you have on your plan? Are you anticipating any surgeries coming up? What are your medical needs? And based on how each employee answers, it'll analyze our medical plans and actually give them a recommendation on which plan to choose. So not only does it thoroughly explain the benefit plans that we have, but it helps them choose which plan is the best for them. That helps both the employee and the county in the sense of most employees will choose the most expensive plan and they may not need it. This will actually analyze their situation and make a recommendation so they can choose the best plan that's there for them. We will also use it throughout the year just on benefit communication. It's a tool that can be accessed anywhere. Employees don't have to log in. They don't have to be on county systems. So it's something that's interactive that employees' family members can use as we want to educate on employees on different features of our plan or things just, again, driving healthcare consumerism. They can view this on their own and it's available to employees' family members as well. In addition to life events, so if employees experience birth, adoption, divorce, this system will give some explanation and help them work through any benefit changes they may need to then. It doesn't collect any data, so the employee actually goes in and then in our Infor system chooses the benefit plans that they want. It's purely a communication tool and helps them choose which plans are best for them.
Okay, are there any questions? Councilman Miller?
Are we on track and have our ducks lined up to do the next open enrollment on the new system, or are there any issues that we have to work out between now and then?
We do not have any issues right now since we did open enrollment in the system for this current benefit plan year. We've already been through it. We know what we need to set up. We already have a plan together of things that we need to look at or adjust. But at this point in time, as long as the system is up, we will be setting up the benefit plans and we'll be good to go.
And as regarding the system that's the subject of this item this morning, what would give individual users confidence that what this system is recommending is going to be what's good for them and not what's good, what may be good for the county but not necessarily good for them?
Sure. So I guess the confidence is really in our communication. This tool is something that we purchase, and based on their answers, it will show them the right plan. It's not, we do not have an ability to, it takes all the data, it looks at our plan document, so co-pays, deductibles, co-insurance, and based on how they answer, it shows them which plan would be most affordable and least impactful to them. So they could literally answer the questions in 50 different ways, and it would give them multiple answers on how to enroll. So if somebody wanted to test that and say, okay, I've got a lot of surgeries coming up, I'm going to answer this way, it would most likely recommend our PPO plan. If they go in and do it again and say, I don't have surgeries, I don't anticipate using the doctor, it's going to recommend our EPO plan. So if there's a question on, is it going to steer them to one plan, you could go in multiple times, change your scenario and answers, and it's going to recommend a different plan based on how you answer. So I guess the best way to answer that is they can test that. Based on how you answer, it will make a different recommendation for the plans that we have. In addition, similarly, so flex spending accounts, sometimes employees have difficulty on identifying what to do for a flex spending account. It'll collect their information and help them make a determination on how much to set aside if they want to do a flex spending account.
And what is EPO and how is it different from PPO?
So there's two plans. There's quite a few differences. One, our PPO plan is, I'll generalize the differences. The PPO plan, when you look at it, if you have a lot of medical needs, if you have surgeries coming up, if you have chronic health conditions, and you know you're going to be spending a lot of money medically, that is generally the plan that people would gravitate towards because it has, once you reach a deductible, the plan is paying at 100%. Where the other plan, if you're just going to the doctor occasionally and maybe your kids are sick every once in a while, it's lower out of your pocket and a lower cost plan. So that's very generally the difference between the two. But if you're one of those people that, well, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have a chronic health condition, but what if? That's where this tool will kind of help you. Most people will purchase that PPO saying, well, I just want to have it just in case something happens. Most of the time, that's not the reason to choose the PPO because you're paying more out of pocket for a plan that you don't need.
And what does EPO stand for?
Exclusive provider organization. And PPO is preferred provider organization.
Mr. Nani?
Just following up on Dale's question relative, like, there has to be some way that the data is being determined relative to what's going into this system. And I can see part of the data being an interest to the county to say, okay, we should veer more people here because the county saves more money. So is there a balance as to, like, I don't understand who's deciding what data goes into the system, because that's really the core component relative to what data it spits back out.
Sure. So the data that's going into the system is our plan documents. So deductibles, co-pays,
But it also
co-insurance.
includes county costs as well. I understand we're talking about the employee costs, but are you also rolling in county costs? So is the system spitting back, if they're saying, I have 3 surgeries coming up, will part of the analysis include the overall cost to the county? So we're saying, UH is the best place for that type of surgery because we get a good deal on it or whatever.
No, it doesn't recommend where you get services. It's truly just analyzing which plan is better for the employee.
Okay.
So it's not looking at what plan is best for the county. It's looking at if you have all these surgeries coming up and it's going to base your answers on our plan document and say this is the best plan to give you the best coverage.
Okay.
So
So just to be clear, it is solely based on the best selection for the actual employee relative to healthcare and cost.
Absolutely, because the purpose of the tool for, specifically for open enrollment and for new hires, is to help them choose the correct plan. I guess back to Councilman Miller's question, not the plan that's best for the county. The tool is to make sure they're choosing the best plan to cover their medical needs. So it's not looking at any cost advantages, and it doesn't make recommendations on where facilities. Now, throughout the year, we can do benefits education with this tool to talk about, hey, did you know if you go to Metro, services are cheaper? You know, we can use it that way, but during an enrollment period, it's purely looking at, based on your answers, which is the best plan for you to choose for you and your family.
So following up on that, just as an employee, we're getting ready for open enrollment. You guys are gonna send out a communication and direct me to this website. I'll go on this website and put in all my information, and then I'm gonna then go to Infor, or is there a link between these two systems?
There's no link, so, and this system does not store your personal data, so the county does not have the ability to go in and say, okay, what are our employees having
Be able to
done?
have a printout
It's
or whatever the
completely
case is
separate.
that has my recommended
Yes.
choices, and then I go into Infor and
Yes.
make my selections.
Yep. And it'll also look at, so again, you can put, maybe I'm going to have knee surgery this year, maybe I'm not. I can put both, I can answer them differently and see if it changes which plan I may take. So it literally, you can go through it a couple times and change the scenarios and see if it gives you a different outcome. But yes, then it gives you a sheet, tells you what to do, and then you go into the system and actually do the enrollment.
Okay.
There's no connection between the two systems.
And there's no requirement that the county employee does this. It's just a matter of, it's a tool to use.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we do think it will help with communication. Not all employees can come attend presentations or things like that. So, and this is the only tool that it can analyze your individual needs and tell you what's best versus just hearing general information and trying to figure it out on your own.
Any other questions, Mr. McAleer?
Holly, to follow up from Joe's question there, are we charged on a per employee basis who uses it, or is it a flat charge per year?
It's a flat charge per employee total, so not on how many use it.
What is that per employee?
I don't know if I have that here. I might have to get back to you on that. Actually, I think I do have it. I'll double check this, but $1.70 per employee per month charge for the year. I'll verify that.
So it would be open 12 months, just not during open enrollment?
Correct. So we will use it for throughout the year for new hires, life event communication, overall benefit communication. So anything else we want to communicate, and then open enrollment.
In terms there, though, if we're using it for communication, but an employee doesn't log in, are we still getting charged?
We are. It is based on a per employee per month. So it does not depend on how many employees use it. They base the charge on the population total that you have that can access it.
Will we be able to track how many employees use it? Will we have access to that data? I mean, I think that's an important number. If people aren't using it, we got to make sure that I think employees are using it.
I'll have to verify. I believe so, but I'll have to verify that.
And then I just have a question on the procurement method. And I understand that OPD received the sole source affidavits, but this does sound like something that there wouldn't only be one vendor that could provide this service. And I understand they're out of, I think, Chicago, I think the backup says. I understand they provided the sole source affidavit, but how do we know we are confident that other vendors do not provide this service?
Sure. So we went through the process. I believe it's posted 1 or 2 weeks on the site. Is it 1 or 2?
The Procurement Adversity was posted June 24th through June 28th, 5 days.
So it's posted for 5 days, and any other entities can then, comment, approach the county if they're providing similar services. So the key difference between Jellivision and other providers, there's a number of things. One is that this is a standalone system. It doesn't communicate or interface with any other systems. Two, it's actually providing personalized benefit advice versus a company that could record information and just play it for an individual. That it's unique in that it's asking you questions and helping you make decisions. So there's companies that could record a video and communicate similar information, but not actually give you a recommendation on which plan is best based on your responses. And then, let's see, looking through the list of things that differentiate it. Those were kind of the biggest ones. So most of what other companies see, and we've used it in the past through our benefits consultant, where we do like animations or recordings of benefit information and play them, but it's unique for them to actually be able to put in their individual information and actually get a recommendation on it.
So then how did we get familiar with Jellivision Lab? If they're out of Chicago, did they approach us, or just how did we understand that this is apparently the only company that does this service?
Sure. So I didn't know they were the only one that provided this service, but my husband's previous employer used this for his open enrollment process. And so, of course, I did the open enrollment for him, and it was an amazing process. I didn't have to go in and read and try and understand benefits or attend meetings. I could literally put in my personal information, and it told me what plans to enroll in. So that was 2 years ago that I used that tool through his company. And when I started looking into it, that's when Jellivision indicated that they were a sole source. And so we went through the county sole source process just to verify that.
So is there sole source affidavit? Is their claim that they are the only software subscription service that provides the personalized benefit advice, the recommendation? Is that what their sole source claim is?
It was a couple things that when I look at it here, there's a few. It was that there's no interaction with HRIS, that personalized decision support and benefit education. They say, while some companies offer video solutions, their software provides that interactive piece, which no other company they have. Let's see, comprehensive benefit suite, retirement readiness support. There's kind of a list of things that they gave us that they felt they stand out in the market as a sole source. And so again, we verified that through the posting, and no one responded to debate that.
Lenore?
Lenore Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. Please keep in mind that the sole source is two components. The vendor obviously must state that they're the only ones that provides the certain characteristics for their software, their good, or their item. The department has to state and provide documentation to this board on why it's the only option that they can use to provide the overarching goal. And that is always the subjective part. So again, just because McDonald's is the only one that provides the Big Mac, the department must state, why is it that this is the only hamburger sandwich that we can eat and there's no other option? So just because McDonald's comes through and says special sauce, 2 patties, blah, 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 there still has to be the presentation to the board by the department as to why this is the only thing that they can eat.
Right. I think that's an important point, Lenore, because I understand what our code says, but posting it on the website for 5 days does not mean that there aren't other vendors there. It's just somebody in their whatever department of responding to RFPs or sole sources, they just didn't see it. I mean, that's a pretty hard task to meet when we only post it on our website for 5 days, and assuming then that vendors are looking at our website every day just to make sure we posted a sole source affidavit. I was just going to ask one more question. Go ahead. Holly, has Oswald looked at this, and do they agree that it's a sole source?
They did. So the only thing I could do outside of our process is once I learned of this company, and I did discuss with Oswald, they were not aware of any other vendors that were, again, interactive, already built, not interacting with an HRIS. The previous entities that we worked through with Oswald they would have to build those applications. So we worked with a company previously between the lines, but it's only for one purpose. You work with them, they make a video, you send it out, people watch it. That was it. And so that's the tools that we had been provided with previously. So when I engaged in this process, my options are go online and look and see if there's any other companies, which I couldn't. I could only find, again, companies that could do animations for you or they could build things, but none of them that already existed, none of them that had interactive software, and that their tool was used for multiple projects, not just open enrollment or otherwise. And then the other one is just to post to see if if anybody responded. But outside of that, besides talking to our benefit broker, doing an online search and going through this process, I'm not sure what other way we could have found anybody else, because they're just, nothing shows that, to be this unique.
This question's for Lenora. When we post that type of item, do we ever send out to like the vendor lists of things that, for anybody that's selected to get an RFP on, benefits related type services? I don't know the criteria, but do we take that approach too, to send it out to others? Or is it just sit on the website to see if anybody takes a look?
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. The current standard procedure does not require that. That is something that can be done additionally. And again, it seems to be that the discussion here is not necessarily whether the vendor is confident that they're only going to provide this unique software, is that defining what is the overall need. Is it helping employee determine what the best option is for them? While there may be this option, which is 24/7 or whatever their capabilities may be, this may be the ability to have a call center or someone on call that calls and provides similar opportunity 24/7 to speak to a county employee and discuss what the best option is. So it depends on, again, how the department defines the need and how it meets their mission and why this application or option is the only one. Again, I can go to Hopkins, I can go several different ways, but based on special, unique issues for me, maybe the train is not an option, maybe Uber is not an option, but that doesn't mean that a car by my mother drive from door A to door B is the sole source that I have to go that method.
I like the Big Mac thing better.
And I think to add what she said, we were looking for something that's convenient, so it's accessible anywhere. 2, it's automated and interactive. 3, it's something that it's a 1-year contract. It's something I've used and found it very beneficial. And the target was to be individualized. So we had brought in benefit counselors before. That wasn't well received. We've tried different methods, and so this one really was to use an online tool that anybody could use. They could access it anywhere, and it could be used throughout the year, not just solely for open enrollment. So, to that point, we could do a recording. We could have people on board and do benefit counselors, but we've tried those. And this is a way to try something more automated, interactive, and really dive into individual personal needs.
Councilman Miller.
Is this the first time we're doing this particular approach?
As far as I know, yes. I'm not aware that that the county ever tried to engage a company like this for this type of tool before.
And does this contract contain options for renewals?
I don't believe that it does. It's just an annual contract, and we would, if we want to renew it, we would go forward for a new contract. I don't believe it has any renewal language.
And is your intention, if it works well, to do this on an annual basis, or is this something that's not needed every year?
To me, it's something that if it's utilized and it's well received, then it would be something that we use every year. Even if our benefit plans don't change significantly throughout the years, individuals' needs change throughout the year. In addition to back to the new hire piece, which is huge. We have lots of inefficiencies and gaps in the new hire education process that will always exist. And again, just benefit education throughout the year. So my goal would be is if this is successful, it would be something that we would renew.
And you said benefit counselors were not well received. What was the problem with that?
There was a couple things. Now, the year that we did use benefit counselors, it was mandatory. People didn't like that. We did an active open enrollment. Everybody had to do the enrollment process, and it had been quite a few years since the county had an active open enrollment. And again, I think probably the biggest part was it was the mandatory piece. But in addition, I think employees were looking for the counselors to perform a similar role that this system will and actually recommend a plan for them. And the counselors just aren't going to do that. They'll talk about the plans, but they're not actually going to recommend a plan. So this system is taking it out of, really taking the subjectivity out of it, because it's looking purely at the numbers and basing it on a plan, which would be very difficult for a person to do in a one-on-one meeting.
And is the upcoming open enrollment a regular process as opposed to an active one?
We're in the process of determining that right now, but I don't anticipate it to be active. I think it'll be passive, I believe. So if you want to keep your plans the same, you won't be required to go in and do that. But we're right now in that planning stage and in determining if that's going to be the case. It also depends. We're going through RFP process right now for our dental, vision, life insurance. So if there's any changes, there's going to be parts where employees are going to have to go in. So it's too early to say, but I don't anticipate a active open enrollment.
Okay, I had a couple of questions, not to belabor the point, but since the company is actually making a recommendation, do they have insurance in place to protect the fact that they could possibly tell the employee the wrong thing? I mean, if I go through it,
Yeah.
and somehow the logarithm points me to Metro when I need to go to the Cleveland Clinic for some reason, is there a liability there later on that an employee could come back and make an action against the county saying, you told me to get that plan and now I'm not covered, whereas if I went under this plan, I'd be covered?
So it doesn't look at location specific. So it's not going to look at where you want your services. It's purely basing it on how you answer the question. So if you say I have 3 surgeries coming up, my husband has cancer, and here's all these medications, it's pointing you to the PPO. And there are disclaimers in there. So if you don't have 3 surgeries and your husband's cured of cancer and you don't have that, to go back and say, well, it told me to get the PPO, it's basing that on the decision that you input. So it's not looking at location. It doesn't ask you necessarily.
Aren't the plans, though, one of the differences that everybody has to encounter is what is covered under what plan and where? Wouldn't that? I'm just worried that they make a bad recommendation and the employee comes back and says, I got to pay $10,000 out of pocket now because you told me to go this way.
Yes. So, and I could look into the insurance. I think every entity that we engage in has to have certain insurance levels. I'd have to look at that a little bit more specifically, but it's basing it really on dollars and the types of services that you need, and it's analyzing it based on the plan. So back to. And
that's another question I have. Does it incorporate the cost of these plans in the recommendation?
Yes. So
how does the vendor know what our costs are? Usually we don't know what our costs are to the last minute.
So it's looking at our plan document. So deductibles, co-pays, co-insurance. It's looking at the plan documents.
But I'm talking about the cost to the employee. Because that's ultimately going to be a decision point too, whether you go to Metro or whether you go to a PPO.
Yes.
The price variance should be a factor that is incorporated as maybe not as much, but in conjunction with the level of service that's offered. But how are they going to know what those costs are, because I don't think we know what the costs are until we're done with the open enrollment. You know, it's like a,
Well, we know the cost before open enrollment is over. We can't hold open enrollment unless we know what the plan costs are and the plan design. So this tool will be rolled out as soon, it literally all falls into place about a month right before open enrollment starts, which today we go out and do physical presentations on it. So this system will take the place of that. So all of that will be in the system. And again, it's basing it on how your medical needs. So if you are putting in the scenario and all the services that you need, it's doing an analysis of copays, deductibles, and what's best based on your medical needs. And then it's going to tell you, so if you're having all these services, the PPO plan is better, and it's also showing that plan cost. But we know all of that before open enrollment. We can't have open enrollment without the plan design and costs. But it's basing it on what's best for you and your medical care. So if you're just going to have, I think a good example, a lot of people enroll in that PPO and they say, well, I'm going to have maybe a minor surgery, but nothing else throughout the year. Not that they anticipate. Most of those people should take the EPO plan because they're not going to have as much out-of-pocket cost to justify paying for the PPO plan. So this system is actually doing the analysis based on what you're anticipating, copays, deductibles, out-of-pocket costs to show which plan is best based on how you've answered.
and what about, even though the system itself theoretically doesn't store information, what about the privacy risks of people putting their medical information into a third party? Do we have insurance protecting us from that if there's some kind of security breach?
So again, it doesn't store it. This went through the Tack to look at all of Jeremy Mio's team went through all the dynamics of the computer software and security, and it passed through that system. So we bring in those subject matter experts to make sure that there's no concerns with how the entry and data is used, but it passed through that system. So that would be, I don't know all the details, that's out of my realm with the IT piece, but based on that analysis, everything's covered as far as any security concerns technology-wise, but it does not store your data. It doesn't collect your name. It doesn't collect any of your personal data to be subject to any via any violation there, because it's not collecting that. You can go into the system and it doesn't know exactly what you've done or what you're anticipating. It doesn't store that. It's just putting it through the system and analyzing a plan. It doesn't tie it to you specifically.
Okay.
Doesn't store it in a database. We don't get any reporting. It's purely just that one stop. So if you went back in a month later, you could answer those questions. It's not pulling up your record or storing what your answers were. It's not collecting that data.
Mr. Meckler?
Holly, I might be missing something, but in terms of the plans that the county offers, it's a couple versions of Metro Health and then a couple versions of Medical Mutual. If I'm not mistaken, though, the Metro Health plan is always cheaper for the employee. That was part of the driving force of trying to get employees to go to the Metro Health plan in terms of how much comes out of their paycheck, how much they pay for doctor's visits. There no co-insurance and stuff like that, just that they don't have to meet the $5,000 deductible and all that. What would change if that's always the cheapest plan? Why would the service recommend anything else to if it's only for the employee? Mm-hmm. I'm just not sure ever a scenario where they would recommend a different plan if Metro Health is always the cheapest plan.
So that's going to come through in what I'll call like the screening questions. When you ask, it's going to look at where you live. It's going to look at, if you are someone that if you don't want to consider Metro Health, and we haven't built that exactly yet, so I can't tell you exactly how it's going to ask you, but those would be in what I call the screening questions. If you know right off the bat, I'm not interested in Metro Health, there'll be something to screen that out, so it's only looking at the two options under MMO. If you don't care and you want to see all the plans, then that screening question you would answer in a way so it would look at all three and make that recommendation. But those would be in those screening questions when you're giving the preliminary information for it to analyze which plan's best for you. But what you're saying, if everybody would go in, it's always going to recommend Metro Health because of cost. But there's going to be questions that it asks you so that if you are not interested in, and if you don't want to consider Metro Health, it would eliminate that from your options.
One other question. In the backup, you said it went through TAC, and here it says IT is reviewing to see if TAC is required?
It passed TAC on 6/24/19.
Why would the detail not have that date in it?
Where's the detail at? I don't know where the detail.
In the detail breakout of the item, one of the questions is TAC approval, and it says in here, IT is reviewing the item to see if TAC is required.
I don't know when that had to be submitted or if it just didn't get updated, but I did get confirmation just this morning that it passed TAC on 6/24/19.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions, comments? Mr. McAleer?
Mr. Chair, I mean, just really one comment. It's not, I understand where Holly's coming from, the rationale of wanting to use this particular vendor. I still have concern over the sole source part of it. I'm not confident that it's the only computer software program that can do this type of service. So I'm just generally concerned with that aspect.
You know, is anybody from the law department, you have an opinion on this, or?
I have not looked at this contract, so I don't really have an opinion on it. I'm happy to review the materials that have been submitted to our office, review the contract, take a look at it, and report back, but at this time, I have nothing to add.
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. The board has the choice in this case because it did go through the procedure to be a sole source, but if the board is not comfortable with making the award as a sole source, it still can be awarded as an RFP exemption and or held for further details. Those are the options before the board.
May I ask at this point, outside of dealing with a benefits consultant, doing research online, posting it through a process, my understanding that process is in place to be able to verify things like that. What would you recommend in addition that we haven't already done to ensure that there's not a sole source? I'll go back to what Lenora indicated, that it really depends on the scope of what we're looking for. We can do videos, we can do counselors, we can do other things, but what else would you suggest be done in order to verify that they're a sole source?
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. Just because an item is a sole source does not mean that's the only method of procurement. For instance, 3 or 4 months ago, the department could have done an RFP looking for a method or option to improve employee understanding, employee guidance on making selection, and this vendor could have submitted, and this could have been the award. At this point, we don't have, depending upon the timing that the department needs, we don't have the time to do an RFP process if you want an award within the next month or so. So if the board is not comfortable with a sole source, an RFP option exemption is an option. In general, departments should always consider a competitive process as the default, because even if it does not preclude the award being to a vendor who ultimately is a sole source, but at least you've gone through a process and evaluated and come up with a recommendation that provided all the options to the county.
Sure. I think I would recommend then we don't have a sole source process, because it sounds like we're always requiring going through a RFP process just to verify it at best. So I look to your advice on what you'd like to do next.
Holly, does it need to be effective today for some reason? Can this contract wait a week or so?
We're getting to the point where we have to set this up for open enrollment. So if it gets delayed much more, then we would have to forego it for this open enrollment period. One of our limitations that we're dealing with in our system is the ability to put information in to communicate employees as they're going through the enrollment process. So if you use the system last year, there's not a lot of information on the screens. So when you're pulling up that screen, we have about room for maybe 3 sentences. And so we struggle with how to get employees the right communication and make it accessible. And that's why we were looking for additional tools, because we have some significant limitations with the system. So if we delay this, it would be too late really to do any other mechanism for this open enrollment period.
When does open enrollment start?
It'll start in October. So the RFP process would take us beyond that start time. Most companies would need to start within the next few weeks in order to build a product, a video, counselors, anything else, any other options that would need to be there.
Well, I guess the question I'm asking, not on behalf of anybody else, is that if it needs to start today, why are we getting it today? Why couldn't we have gotten it 30 days ago? So we would have time to at least ask a question.
So I don't know when this was originally submitted, but we had to go through that sole source process. So the company has to submit a sole source letter. We have to submit the documentation. It gets posted for a week. So this was, I don't know if anybody else has that, but I believe this was submitted probably at least 4 weeks ago or so. I don't know if anybody has that offhand, but this isn't something we just started this week to get on. I don't know.
Any other, Mr. Meckler?
I would just potentially request, if it's possible, Holly, if we could wait a week. And you asked, Mr. Chair, a couple questions about the insurance. I think those were good questions that we're not 100% sure on. I personally would just like to look at this a little further, just in terms of the sole source aspect of it.
Is there any board members that would have a concern to hold this a week as opposed to Councilman Miller?
Director, can you live with 1 week and still get it done for the open enrollment?
I believe so. I'll reach out to Jellivision and let them know it's delayed a week, but I would hope they would be able to adjust with 1 week.
So if that's the general consensus of the board, then we can hold this item till next week's meeting, and hopefully we can coordinate between myself, Mr. McAleer, other board members, and yourself, maybe to get some answers and
Sure.
move forward in the law department. So, okay, thank you.
Moving to the next item, item BC 2019-542, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services, Office of the Emergency Management, recommending an award on requisition 45489 and enter into a contract with JH Consulting LLC of West Virginia in the amount not to exceed $26,046 for multi-regional emergency operations center exercise services. And it's for the period July 22nd, 2019 through February 28th, 2020.
Good morning, Mary Beth Vaughn from Public Safety, and I'm here to discuss this item. The vendor will be conducting simultaneous multi-county emergency operations center exercises for the Cuyahoga County, Lake County, Geauga County, Ashtabula County, Lorain County, and the City of Cleveland Emergency Operations Centers. And the purpose of these exercises will to help these centers identify the strengths and weaknesses of each county's emergency operations center plans. A reminder, the grant that's paying for this is actually a multi-county regional grant, which is why it's such a good match. We did solicit quotes, and we received 3 responses. We're making a recommendation to the lowest price vendor. There was a question about our making an award to a West Virginia vendor. We received the 3 responses. None of the vendors who submitted a proposal were within the state of Ohio. We solicited proposals from 9 agencies that we knew did this business. 3 of them are in the county. In the state. In addition, we also sent it to 82 buy-speed vendors, 64 of whom were in the state of Ohio, but we only received 3 responses.
Questions? My only question, Mary Beth, would be, it says on here that the contract needs a signature in ink today. Is that, what if we just didn't approve it today? What would happen?
We need an ink signature on the contract.
But Is it today or is that just date because that's today's meeting?
It's probably today's meeting. The one other thing I would like to add also is we have used this vendor recently. They did the commodity flow study back in the fall, and we were very pleased with their work.
Okay, any questions related to this item? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Dever. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-543, Court of Common Pleas, Juvenile Court Division, submitting an amendment to an agreement with Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board of Cuyahoga County for mental health services in the Intervention Center. And it's for the period January 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2019, to extend the time period to June 30th, 2020, to modify the terms effective July 1st, 2019, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $250,000.
Good morning, Sarah Baker, Juvenile Court. This is just our amendment to our contract with the Adams Board, who's providing the mental health services through Applewood in the new intervention center. The reason for the delay in this amendment is due to the fact that this is a grant-funded item. So by the time we get the grant award and then we're trying to get the contracts entered into and requesting index codes, it just kind of takes a little bit of time. We are also modifying the budget section of this agreement. Previously, it had been just a flat monthly amount, and we are modifying it to reflect more of a cost reimbursement. And since it's just for salary, they'll be sending us an invoice that breaks out exactly how much they paid for salary during that month term.
Any questions on this item? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is approved.
Next item, BC 2019-544, Court of Common Pleas, Juvenile Court Division, submitting an amendment to a contract with Child and Family Advocates of Cuyahoga County for the Guardian Ad Litem project, and it's for the period July 15th, 2018 through July 14th, 2019, to extend the time period to January 14th, 2020, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $54,937.50.
Sarah Baker, Juvenile Court. We did actually issue an RFP this year for our Guardian Ad Litem project, and we only received one response, who is our current vendor. And we are actually trying to look at the possibility of taking this in-house versus contracting out with the vendor. So this 6-month extension is going to allow us to actually research it and try to figure out the best way possible that we could possibly take this and do it with our current court staff. Unfortunately, this is an item that the judges do need to vote upon, so that is the reason why it's a few days late. And that is also why they have requested that we take some more time and due diligence to really see if we can do this.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Nani. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-545, Agency of the Inspector General, recommending an award on requisition 46018 and enter into a contract with NextPoint Inc. in the amount not to exceed $10,000 for e-discovery software services. And it's for the period August 1st, 2019 through July 31st, 2021.
Mark Griffin, Inspector General. This is a request for a 2-year contract for 4 unlimited e-discovery licenses plus 1 administrator license. So effectively 5 licenses, unlimited for e-discovery to permit us to review quickly documents, to scan for HIPAA-related and protected materials, and also to respond to public records requests to make sure that confidential information is not disclosed. This was put onto buy-speed. In addition, we reviewed the recent Everlaw contract that Law was involved in. That's a $100,000 contract. The bidding and the pricing is different for each entity. Those licenses were not unlimited. Instead, they had a per gigabyte charge, and we believed that we would quickly exceed that. In looking at 6 other vendors, the lowest other one we could find was $23,000 a year. This is $5,000 a year. They actually wanted to charge us $7,200 a year. We told them if we could get it by the end of June 30th, would they give us 5,000? They said yes. We're now a month past that, but they're still being, they're willing to honor that price reduction commitment. So I would request approval of contract BC 2019-545.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. McAleer?
Mark, I don't know if you know the difference or not, but is NextPoint doing the same thing that I think it was Everclear doing for the county?
Yes and no. This is a much cut down version. I think Everlaw has been around significantly longer, and they really have a full featured system which can generate all sorts of reports and different things. We thought that wasn't really necessary. I think Everlaw is one of those products that has grown over the years, and the price has grown over the years as well. My understanding is that the law department would like to see how our process works with this cheaper version to see whether they could use it in the future. They obviously had urgent time-sensitive needs this year to respond quickly, but I think we're going to work with them to see if we can save the county money if this works for us.
Okay, thank you for saying that, because it is significantly cheaper than the Everlaw contracts. I just wondered.
And I would say this, which is one of the reasons we were able to get it cheaper, was that council and the county was kind enough to give us a shared IT person who was very helpful. John Cornwell did a great job in looking and finding these for us, and hopefully saving us some money.
Thank you. Any other questions from anybody?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Miller.
First time you've used this particular set of services?
I'm not exactly sure. Let me try to respond. We had a 2-week trial period for this, which worked for us and was sort of important in a recent report that we issued on APHIS. And so it's the first time, I guess I'm trying to respond. We obviously review documents, but we didn't have a good system before to do it electronically. So it's the first time we've used a e-discovery system, but we had a 2-week trial period to test these out. Did that answer your question?
Any other questions or comments?
Move approval.
The item has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we move on to the consent agenda. Is that correct, Andrea?
Yes, consent agenda item numbers BC 2019-546 through 548.
If everybody can take a moment there to take a look at those 3 consent agenda items. Are there any questions on any of the items? I had one question about the one travel request that's from April. Is there a reason that it just got held up in process that we're approving something that already happened?
Andrea Richardson, Office of Procurement and Diversity. I looked into this item and I spoke with Mr. Mike Sapola as well as the department. And there should be someone here representing the office who can address this question.
This was for travel. This is a fellow that's provided by the Cleveland Foundation. This was a required conference under the terms of that the fellowship agreement. The funds were paid by Cleveland Foundation, other than the registration fee, which funds were given as part of the grant to the Office of Reentry. We did not know that that the conference fee had to be paid separately. And so the individual paid out of pocket and reported that on his return, and it was then sent to, I guess, the fiscal department, and somehow it got, I'm not sure exactly what the holdup was with that, so it was not submitted until after the conference, but from that point on, it was some kind of mix-up with them. The funds have already been provided by the Cleveland Foundation.
So this is a reimbursement.
There's a reimbursement
to
the individual who paid it out of pocket.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Politan, can you introduce yourself for the record? Can you introduce yourself for the record? Can you state your name for the
I'm sorry,
record?
I did not realize. I'm sorry. Fred Bolliton with the Office of Reentry.
Okay. Are there any other questions about any of the, Mr. Nani?
I have a minor question, but because it's really, the dollar amount isn't small, but there is a travel item for Office of Innovation where the person's flying to this event in Nashville, and it doesn't look like the person's renting a car, so there's a charge for $1.70 for tolls, and I was just curious what that was.
Sorry, Becky Evie for the Office of Innovation and Performance. That actually should be under the transportation line. That's just to take the bus to and from the airport.
I gotcha. Yeah. Understood. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nani. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda for today is approved. Is there any other business, Madam Clerk?
No other business at this time,
Is there any public comment?
and no public comment.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor of adjournment indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.